Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies, where we are in my basement doing big things, big things. First and foremost, we uploaded 2 podcasts like a week and a half ago.
See, I got a completely different number. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Paul, but
no, you're fine. We did a podcast last week with Mike Anderson, and we had some technical difficulties with the Mac. Sorry, and we've now updated ourselves to a different computer, so we are good to go. We're ready to rock, and we're here. What's going on?
It's actually a big deal. It doesn't seem like that much of a big deal, but like, I feel really bad about that. We had a really good podcast like last week. Like, it was a solid podcast. We talked to Mike Anderson. It was really good. He gave some good input. It was the first time that he came up on webcam, like where we could see his face, and we were going to put it on the video. And like, it's unfortunate that those problems happened and that we lost audio, we lost some video. Like, it was just a bad situation.
And more so than anything, just the importance of everything that we talked about. I felt, because we were going over Trump impeachment and just general knowledge, because a lot of I feel like the general public doesn't know. Like, me being a layman was asking a lot of questions, and it was a learning experience for me, which is always what happens whenever Mike Anderson comes on. It's always a learning experience, and I get to take something away with it, take something away from the podcast that I feel like I learned from it. So it was really informative. It's always really good, and it kind of broke my heart a little bit. Whenever we found out.
We'll have one in the future though with Mike Anderson, like pretty soon. I'm assuming. I don't know. This is more of Paul's realm, but we will pretty soon.
Yeah, we for sure we'll set it up to where we hit him up.
We just hate to lose because of technical difficulties. Really important conversation, and because that's the center of what we do here.
Yep.
Is having. We do a lot of things here, but one thing that holds close to my heart is informative things that, like I get to learn some things. Everybody got to hear. Everybody gets to take away something from that. So to lose that hurt a little bit. So,
but we're good now. Paul's got a new PC.
Yep.
New everything. We're in a different realm.
We know to check certain stuff before
It's a learning process.
It's a learning process.
That's how you learn, right? Mistakes.
It's a learning process.
You learn from your mistakes. So we're good now.
It is. Sorry, Mike, man. I know you check out the podcast, man. We're really sorry, man. We're gonna have you back on soon. We're gonna make it happen. So
Paul, what are we talking about tonight?
There's a few things that we're gonna talk about tonight. The first being, with as big as the coronavirus is, man, and having kids and being in this realm that we live in, it's scary, man. It's scary. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about some other shit, but let's just hit it off. I mean, I think 70,000 people are infected or something like that. Was that the last? I mean, you were able to pull up it on your phone, and there's like an app or something like that.
So right when we were starting the podcast, I pulled up where I've been getting all my information on it, because I get like an update from the app that I'm on. Well, it just gets posted because it's fairly popular right now. So this was as of 9 hours ago. And you said you got a different number than this.
I do. That's the problem I have. I'll get into that in a moment.
So this is just what I'm getting, is that there have been, and I'm gonna round up. There's gonna be 79,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus infection, and 2,500 deaths from it, and 23,000 recoveries. So
there's still a lot of people that are within quarantine to see what happens.
Yes, but I mean, as far as confirmed cases, the deaths, and then the total recoveries, which I'm curious to see what the number that you pulled up to see if it's close to.
So what I've got is this is based on 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern at February 23rd, which is what is today?
Mine was 9 hours ago, so that's about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, today's the 23rd, so
right.
That's not that long ago.
Yeah, so
they're
saying
about
the
same. It's 78,800 cases, so 79,000 sounds about right.
I rounded up a little bit.
Okay, there's 79,000 cases of coronavirus.
Okay,
which rose from 2,400 worldwide not that long ago, so that's pretty rapidly expanding. But it's also saying right here, it's saying there have been 23 deaths directly related to coronavirus outside of mainland China. Only 23 deaths. I'm not talking about infection. I'm talking about actually deceased, fucking dying.
I think that's huge. That's important. That statistic right there. It has to be.
I'm not saying. This is a problem with. Okay, I will get into this in a moment. I will get into the whole like the deaths and the coronavirus and all this in a moment. First off, before we even like talk about that, I want to talk about the fact that we're all getting different numbers based on different sources, and I'll bring up some of the sources here. Like, what is yours, Jesse? What are you getting it from?
It is okay. So I can't tell you the exact source. Okay, so the link is.
What's the URL?
Man, it's
just a general. Like mine's from CNN. Mine's from CNN.
Okay, so mine's from Imager, but it's not from Imager. It's just where that information's being posted. So the actual source is from something else, and the URL is a little weird. So, but I mean, the numbers sounded very, very similar.
Okay, before I get into that, my point is that it's unfortunate that when you look up this evidence, it's impossible to find real evidence. Because I look up something on CNN and I get one number. Paul looks up something on Fox News and he gets a completely different number. Jesse looks up something on MSNBC and he gets a completely different number. They're all close. They're all around the same thing, but like they're different numbers. Like
for sure. I don't think it's the numbers that really matter. I think it's the actual virus that's actually affecting people's lives.
That's what we'll move into, and I'm fine with that. I just had to point that out that like at the end of the day, like you cannot. If you right now type in on your phone or your computer or whatever, and you're like, how many people has coronavirus killed? Make sure to look at like 5 different places. Because realistically, you're going to get different numbers from all 5, which is unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. Like nobody has the actual
true number,
the real answer. Like
so to break it down mathematically, you're looking at a 3% mortality rate, basically, right? Like 3% of people who get infected with the...
See, what I'm looking at would be way less than that. 24 deaths outside of China compared to 79,000.
You could look at the total number of deaths, though. You can't
So just from what I'm looking at, you're looking at the total number of deaths, which is, I'm rounding with all this, is 2,500 deaths, 79,000 confirmed cases. You have 23,000 recovered from that they're tracking. So that's like a 3% mortality rate from that. So my big question, which I haven't even prepared for this enough, is how much is that compared to the flu?
I have an answer for that. I have an answer for that right now.
Okay,
let's hear it.
I want to get into that. Okay,
like a percentage. So like a 3% mortality rate if you can track it.
Yeah, before we do that, I want to get into the fact that like, before I show the number, I want to get into the fact that like, everybody is afraid of coronavirus right now to a degree. It's all over the news. Everybody's talking about it. Whether you're afraid or not, like it's out there. It exists. People are getting up in arms about it and saying that it's a very bad thing that has happened. And I'm not saying it's not bad. But in our time, in my time alive, which I am 29 years old, I was born in 1990. So I lived through the 90s, the aughts, and now the aught teens, whatever you want to call them, into 2020. We have dealt with mad cow disease, swine flu,
SARS,
aka H1N1. We've dealt with SARS. We've dealt with avian bird flu. We've dealt with a lot of things. There's probably others.
And you're
that
missing.
I'm forgetting.
Yeah, you're probably missing about like 3 or 4.
I'm missing some. But
in there too.
If you're around my age, or maybe a little older than me, or maybe a little younger than me, right around your late 20s, mid 20s, mid 30s, you know what I'm talking about when I say SARS, H1N1.
Actually, SARS is probably the closest one to this because it also stemmed from
China.
From China. Yes.
Okay. My point is that we go through these things and we talk about these things and we talk about how bad they are, and like everybody's like blowing up right now, like, oh my God, coronavirus is such a terrible thing. I don't want to be negative here and say that like the world is cyclical and we go through these things over and over. But I'm looking up H1N1. Do you guys remember swine flu?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers swine flu. It was a pretty serious thing, just like coronavirus. People were scared of it. Everybody remembers hearing swine flu and H1N1. Everybody remembers those numbers, but we're all still here. The United States still exists. Some things happened, but the Center for Disease Control says that swine flu infected... Hold up real quick. How many did coronavirus infect so far?
Right now, 79,000.
79,000. Okay.
people.
Swine flu infected 61 million. 61 million.
But I think the whole point that was over a longer period of time.
True.
First of all,
time frame matters.
So you need to take that into account because the coronavirus is really, really recent.
Not. I mean, yeah, it's
in comparison.
Yes,
in comparison, this
okay.
is still really recent.
Swine flu, 61 million people. 575,000 deaths.
Damn.
500.
Is there a span of time where it
500.
started?
I'd have to look into that too.
Okay.
And this comes back to, and I apologize for this, honestly, to our viewers and everybody else. We're gonna try to improve on this in the future, but like I feel bad that we haven't looked up this information
For sure, yeah.
in advance and got this down, and that's something that we're gonna work on. But right now, just saying in general, 575,000 deaths from swine flu. That's more deaths from swine flu than there are cases.
Right. Even if you
of
wanted,
coronavirus.
even if you wanted to take it down to like 20%, it's still more cases.
It's still more cases
Yes.
than there are coronavirus.
Right.
So my point is, I'm not saying coronavirus isn't a bad thing. Like obviously, it's terrible. It's terrible that it's
For
happening.
sure.
I just feel like in today's day and age, we look at a disease or something that happens. It doesn't even have to be a disease. It can be anything that happens in the world. Anything that happens, an event, any kind of event that happens, ignoring like disease and plague and all these things. Like it could be a presidential election, whatever. We look at this and we tunnel vision ourselves on it. Like we tunnel vision ourselves and we say this is what's important right now. And oh my god, I'm scared of this.
Right.
And it's like you don't realize that like this isn't the end all be all. I remember specifically in 2002 or 2003, I had a lot of and I'm not trying to like dog on, that's not what this podcast is about. I'm not trying to dog on religious people right now. I'm just using that as an example. I had a lot of religious people tell me that this was the end times.
Right. 2000.
I'm not even talking about 2000, 2001, like the apocalypse. I'm talking about like 2003, 2004.
Okay.
It was the end times because there was an awful war in the Middle East. There was a war in Iraq. It was right after 9/11. It was a couple of years after 9/11. There was this awful war in the Middle East. And they're like, oh, the Bible says there's going to be this awful war in the Middle East and that everything is going to go to shit and we're going to get the mark of the beast. And, oh, credit cards are the mark of the beast because we're all identified on paper now. This is a problem. It's never been this bad. I quote, it's never been this bad. And I feel like that's what we say all the time, but people don't realize that history repeats itself and the world is cyclical and that's what we go through. And I'm like, that even relates to disease. We're going through coronavirus now. We went through H1N1. We went through avian bird flu. We went through mad cow disease. We went through SARS. We went through a war in the Middle East. There was a war before that in the Middle East. Do you guys remember like Desert Shield and the Gulf War and all this different stuff that happened in the fucking early 90s when I was a kid? Like, my point is, at the end of the day, whether it's war or disease or anything else, these things happen, and they happen repeatedly over a course of time. And just because it's affecting us right now and we fucking tunnel vision focus on it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world and it's the worst of the worst.
So I have something, not to...
Sure, you're good.
And there's no segue for this at all, but just something on a scientific level that I want to explain about this that I think a lot of people miss whenever looking at the coronavirus. It's that in the same way that you need this balanced biological system, which is how the Earth works off of. And the best example that I can talk about this is what farmers have to deal with on a very regular basis, because they farm land to where there's now a lack of biodiversity because it's just wheat in a field. So a virus spreads really quick whenever there is no separation and no biodiversity within that environment. So if a virus happens to come in, and let's just say you have a small amount of wheat within this acre, it's really no big deal because there's wheat over here. But because we have everything nice and neat and conformed, which is what human beings tend to do, but doesn't react nicely with how the actual Earth works as far as protection layers go, because you need biodiversity to prevent things like something will always eat the bigger fish, right, in the end. But if you get rid of the bigger fish, and it's just a bunch of small fish, next thing you know, this thing can run rampant. So that's what I'm getting down to, and that might be I feel as though it's a decent example. But whenever you have a high populated area where you have people so close to each other living like in China in these highly populated areas
with the same immunities because they're the same culture and have lived through the same things.
Yeah, same immunities. Whenever something comes in they can get them all, and they're so close. This thing spreads so rapidly, which will always happen because of the lack of separation of biodiversity. And to think that, it's only limited to plants is ridiculous. If you have high population areas where you have 1 million people packed within like a 5-mile radius, if something happens there, you're going to see a horrible outbreak because it's not spread out enough. It's almost not in tune with how nature wanted things to be. But I know that human beings try to, and we combat that and everything. I'm not saying that, we shouldn't have big cities or anything like that. I understand that's just how the world works. But, this is a side effect. This is a side effect of how industrial and this increased population in big cities work. Whenever a virus, like if you had the coronavirus outbreak and the population would be half the size, nobody would be talking about it. I guarantee you. Because it would be so well contained and so easily contained. It's the fact that you have a major population, the same way that I talked about why they have to crop dust wheat fields in the same way, because a virus comes in, or a parasite comes in that case, whenever with like wheat, but whenever a virus comes into the human population, it works the same way. It's because everybody's so close to each other, the virus spreads so fast. And it's the lack of, not biodiversity at that point, but it's the lack of biological beings spread out more.
I mean, that's
almost
biodiversity
from each other.
I almost disagree.
So-
I'm sorry, I'm not going to cut you off, but I almost disagree because you brought up earlier, like the actual flu itself, like here in America, and how many people die from that each year.
It's talking like the common flu.
For sure, yeah, like the common flu. But in the reason that I disagree with this, I think that, and I'm not going on a conspiracy level here and trying to say that maybe this was man-made, which there are a lot of reports. And these are coming from actual people who have relevance to our society that say that it might be man-made.
You're just talking about the flu in general, though.
Yeah, but look at the flu, and it exists every single year. It doesn't go away. It happens each and every single year. People die from it, and the numbers are probably right around the same amount each and every single year. But with this, it happened, boom, just like that. It came out of nowhere. No one knew what the coronavirus was. It just appeared. How does it just appear? How does nature just allow that to happen? I would have
the big difference with the flu, real quick, by the way, is that when in 2018, when so and so many people died from the flu, that is a different strain of flu than what we're dealing with right now.
No, I understand.
It's just called
that.
the flu. That's not one disease that is just lasted.
I understand that, but
throughout the years.
But each and every single year, whenever it hits wintertime, and maybe in California or Florida, it's different, and there's still some sort of type of flu there. Sorry, excuse me. There's a flu. And we know it each and every single year that there's a flu. There's a possibility of getting it. You're going to run a high fever. You might shit your pants. You might puke everywhere. And you might shit your pants at the same time. That's a possibility.
Sometimes when I shit, I puke.
Yeah. I did it in the 4th grade. I shit and puked at the same time. It was not fun.
It's awful. The flu is awful.
Yeah.
I've had the flu before.
We know it exists. But with the coronavirus, it just appeared out of nowhere. And in just listening to reports of the level of, like it was in Wuhan, there's a kind of like a mini CDC who plays around or messes with flus and shit like that, and that's where the epicenter started. So what are the odds that maybe they created this actual
they
flu?
definitely
You know what I'm
not
saying?
to get too much into conspiracy theory, but I agree with you, Paul. Like that could have happened, and mistakes happen, and shit happens. Like
the regulations that China has.
Okay, so first of all, not to directly agree with you, which I won't do because there's not a whole lot of validity behind that, but are we capable on a scientific level to manufacture a virus like that? I think absolutely.
Yes.
I think
We
absolutely.
fuck around with SARS. We fuck around with H1N1. We fuck around with that. We have scientists right now in a lab somewhere in America.
We still have
Yeah.
botulism and the Black Plague and all that. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So is there the scientific? Now I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm saying is that a possibility? Yes, and there is no absolute yes for me. That takes. You would need to get me on board with what you're saying. There needs to be a motive, first of all. What's the motive? Was it experimental? Was it experimental? Accidentally broke out, like a vial dropped in a lab somewhere, like the Umbrella Corporation from
Right.
just like Raccoon City.
I don't think
you
I don't think that would ever be the case. But from my understanding, I think that probably what it truly is. I mean, like when you come to America and you see the regulations and stipulations that the CDC has when they're messing with viruses or they're in a biochemical lab and they're messing with these things, it's very strict, man. Like everything is strict. But when you go over to China, regulations are eased up. Everything's more eased. Like, it's not like here in America or in other places where they take this shit seriously. I'm not saying China doesn't take it seriously, but maybe they don't. And maybe there are less stipulations, and this is how the shit broke out, man. I'm not saying they did it intentionally. Maybe they did.
Honestly, to back up your conspiracy theory a little bit.
And I'm about to go there because you said it best, man. Whenever we were hanging out, and I brought this up to you. We weren't hanging out, but we were at work, and you brought it up. How convenient is it that you have all these strikes going on in China with the way that the government is going to have this happen,
right?
And you shut down a fucking city, man.
And then now all of a sudden, because you have this massive protest,
nobody's paying attention. Nobody's paying attention to Hong Kong.
It's gone now, dude. It's gone. It's all virus now.
Well, it's still relevant. The protests are still happening, but the problem is, and like I said, how the virus spreads. The virus spreads through human contact.
Media-wise,
absolutely,
no.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you had all these protests in Hong Kong because they felt a suppression from their government, and they were protesting heavily. And I mean, I fully support the protests in Hong Kong. Absolutely. We're
not the NBA. We support what Jesse just said.
We support the protests. I can't speak for, like you just said that you did, but I'm speaking for myself in particular. I've seen enough of it that these are people that are fighting for a better life and feel a suppression from their government, and I feel as though you have every right to protest that. You're right. It is a little weird whenever a virus comes out that only is contracted through human contact. And if you were now worried about your life, and if you had a 3% survival rate, I'm sorry, 3%, I'd have to be really passionate about the movement that I was going to support if I were to roll the dice on like 100-sided dice, and there's 3 sides that kill me if I went to this.
You have to be real passionate to go.
You have to be real passionate to go. So I'm sure that deadened it a little bit. That is very interesting to back up your conspiracy theory, which adds a little bit of validity to it, but I'm still not 100% convinced that that's actually what it is. But it is convenient timing because things like this always come around.
I think what's more even crazier is the fact that it happens every 100 years. Like, you go back to the 1720s and you had was it the Black Plague in the 1720s?
Oh, dude, the Black Plague killed more people than any other fucking virus will kill.
Which we'll never know what the true numbers were because that was in 1720s.
It killed I'd have to look it up again.
Millions.
So I would like to say right now that
20 million?
What I'm saying right now is completely anecdotal. There's no evidence behind this because I don't feel like looking it up on my phone right now. But from what I can remember from school, it killed roughly 40% of the European population.
Yeah, that's bad.
I think it's strange, and I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are.
Also, to go back on that, to support what I was saying, just on a scientific level, and I don't know everybody agrees with this probably, is this happened in high-density populations where it was spread easier due to lack of biodiversity, basically.
But back in those times, there wasn't hygiene. Now you have hygiene. I'm not saying that Chinese people are gross.
Which prevents it. No, which prevents it. But the whole thing is you have an easily contractable through human contact virus. That's why they wear the masks and everything. You can even breathe on someone in just a little bit of saliva, which is technically human contact because it's a part of you reaching another person. It's not like shaking your hand and then touching your eye. You can also breathe on somebody, and saliva contracts it as well. That's why they wear the mask. But
no, the masks aren't even at 100%. But continue.
I was gonna say you breathe in like the size of molecules and atoms and shit.
Right, it's small.
You don't think they can fit through a goddamn mask?
Dude, it's like my dick, bro.
You yourself, Jesse, you couldn't wear a mask because of your beard.
Content.
Your beard would affect the way the mask works.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll be right back. I need to piss already.
My big thing is we got into the nitty gritty. We got into the nitty gritty about this. The point that I was making about coronavirus, that when Paul first brought it up, is the fact that I'm not saying you shouldn't be afraid. Like, there's nothing wrong with protecting yourself and being slightly worried about it. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the same as like the Black Plague, H1N1, like people were worried during H1N1. Like, you should be worried about it. You should be worried about swine flu. You should be worried about avian bird flu. You should be worried about coronavirus. But I don't think that it is this crazy world-ending, oh, fuck, the coronavirus is the worst thing that's ever happened. Like, this is awful, and I can't believe this is happening. Like, I'm completely incapable of understanding why this is happening right now, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to the world. Like, you have to understand that stuff like this has not only happened multiple times, but has happened worse than it's currently happening right now.
I think that's the scariest part, though, is when is it going to happen worse or or what is going to happen worse than the Black Plague.
I guess,
you know what I'm saying?
I get that, but before you get into that, I completely agree. By the way, Paul, like eventually one day we will get to that point where it's going to be worse. Like we're going to have a fucking.
Well, maybe not, because times are different, things are different. We're a lot more cleaner society than what we used to be.
I'm saying you should focus on yourself and your friends and your family, and like realize what's going on around you. Stay updated with the news. Stay updated with what's going on. Like protect yourself from it, but do not look on Facebook and look at coronavirus memes or whatever and think that this is the end of the world and that the coronavirus is the worst fucking virus that we've ever had in our life, because it's not. We've been here before. We've dealt with this stuff before in my lifetime. Like in not that long, like 29 years is not that fucking long. And we've dealt with this multiple times.
I remember mad cow disease being a thing.
That's what I'm saying. Like, mad cow, yeah. H1N1.
I remember
avian bird flu, and more than I'm forgetting. Avian bird flu was a huge fucking deal. H1N1, swine flu, was a huge fucking deal. We had fucking food classes and all kind of shit about that. That was like, this is how you don't spread H1N1 and all this different stuff. And I'm like, I'm not saying you should ignore it. I'm not saying you shouldn't take precautions. I'm not saying you shouldn't like practice proper hygiene and be clean and like try to do everything in your power to avoid it. But at the end of the day, realize that it is not some end-all, be-all of fucking diseases.
And I think another thing that I don't think we hit on at all is the different groups of people that, as far as mortality rates go, like is it elderly people who have a weakened immune system,
for sure,
elderly,
kids
like,
with a weakened immune system? That's always higher ratios within this as far as fully adapted to our biological environment, which I think is a big thing.
But those are the questions people aren't asking. They're just looking at the news and saying people are dying, as opposed to looking at actual information like that.
That's
really
that's fear-mongering. And
right. Biological
we've covered
diversity.
This before in a different podcast about media fucking tactics. And
like people's immune system, the strength of their immune system whenever they contract the virus, like super young people, super old people, obviously more susceptible to things like that. Even the flu. The flu kills old people all the time. And it's just the human body degrades over time. Nobody's here forever.
It's part of life. I don't want to be that person, but it's part of life.
Nobody's here forever, and that's a shitty way to go. Don't get me wrong. It's awful. It's a shitty way to go. Nobody wants to die from the flu because the flu is awful. Like, can you imagine? Like, I remember like diarrhea, like shitting and fucking and like throwing up and just feeling miserable. That's not the way I want to go out.
Right.
So that's awful. And to do our best scientifically to help prevent that is I'm all for that.
But I think what's crazy about this situation, when you had this cruise ship that had over like 300 or 400 passengers or whatever it was, or maybe even more, I don't remember, but this cruise ship that left Japan, the port of Japan, and they did their thing, and then
Japan or China?
It was Japan, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm sorry.
I was just curious.
And anyways, they had multiple reports of the coronavirus, and they had one of the lead scientists from, I believe it was either Japan or China, come in, who specifically deals with diseases, and he walked in, he saw what was going on, he watched it on this cruise ship to see how they were dealing with this virus on this cruise ship, and he said it was very laxed. He said no one was in control, everyone was fighting for control, no one really knew what they were doing. He said like the precautions for these people who were in these hazmat suits and shit like that, he said you had people walking around freely without mask on, just like, he said it was like if you
a cruise ship.
Yeah, a cruise ship with hundreds of people on it, and he's just saying like, dude, like there's no precautions on this cruise ship whatsoever, like none. They kicked him off the cruise ship because he was questioning all this shit. They kicked him off the fucking cruise ship, man. And allegedly, I didn't watch the video last night, I was going to watch it, his video has disappeared from Facebook. He actually uploaded a video on Facebook on how he felt about the situation with the cruise ship. It is gone. So I think the way they're handling it is unprofessional, and a lot of the points that you guys made as well is very prevalent.
I feel like that's the media in general. Yeah. It's really unprofessional these days. There's no more real reporting, and I don't want to completely digress here and like get onto a different topic. That's not my goal here, but just making an example, like literally watching like Jesse, we the other day watched the fucking Kill the Messenger, which is about what's his name? I don't remember his name.
God
Gary something.
Gary Webb.
Gary Webb. Gary Webb, who like brought up the whole the cocaine epidemic and the fact that like cocaine and crack cocaine was brought into South Los Angeles through the government and all that. My point is that we
need
don't
a
do
picture of Gary Webb, by the way. If
Let's
we could
do
get
it.
an actual picture
Buy
of
one,
Gary
man.
Webb up
We-
here,
we
because
don't
him
do-
as a journalist is really important.
like I said, I'm not trying to digress. I'm not trying to go to other fucking topics right now. But we as a society look at the media, CNN, CNBC, CBS, Fox, MSNBC, all this different stuff. We look at it and take it for like ultimate truth. And we're like, this is what's important right now. This is what's important, and this is what's killing us. And I'm like,
and maybe we should digress.
that's not
maybe
true.
Maybe we should digress. How did we get to a point in civilization where we watch those platforms that you just said?
Because they used to be reliable.
Right. And for
Because
how
they
long?
used to be reliable.
And for how long though? And when should you hold any new news organization or any affiliation to anyone that you know liable in any way, shape, or form? When you live in this earth and you are on here and you're on your own for the most part, or you get a family or you have a group of friends, when do you ever truly trust someone 100%? 100%, right? I trust you. I trust you. I trust my family upstairs. I trust quite a few of friends. But someone I've never met, like a news organization, should you trust that person?
No, not fully, which is why we come back to the point that it's the best time to be alive. We've brought this up multiple times. The fact is, at the end of the day, you have this is what we've said this multiple times on this podcast. Anybody watching out there, don't just listen to us. Don't just listen to what we're saying. Seek out multiple sources, multiple forms of information, because that's the best way you can educate yourself on what is actually happening in the world. Not just our opinion or our advice, or even once in a while when we occasionally present real fucking facts. Not just CNBC, not just CNN, not just Fox. Like, look at a whole bunch of stuff, add it all together, and decide for yourself because unfortunately, nobody's telling you the truth anymore. Not us. We try to. But not us, not Fox News, not CNBC. Nobody's telling you the truth. They're telling you what you want to hear for entertainment purposes to sell their fucking product, whatever that is.
I think... I mean, we want to be truthful. I know that.
No, we try to. We legitimately, like on this right here, this podcast, we try to. We're wrong sometimes due to our own, not out of like deception, but due to our own ignorance. We're not doing it on purpose to deceive anybody. We're not trying to like.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no deception here. Everything we say, we truly believe in.
And some things we can be a little bit hard-headed on. I know I've been hard-headed on this podcast on some things to where I've re-listened to a podcast and I was like, man, I really need to be a little less preachy on this and still have a more open-ended that I still really don't know on this matter, but I feel really passionate about anything I feel really passionate about. I ended up, whenever I rewatch it, I'm like, man, I'm super hard-headed and I'm preachy, and I don't want people to think that this is the end-all be-all of my opinion, because my opinion can change, because the one thing that's inevitable, one thing that's inevitable is I will change and the world will change. And we change together, and that's the whole thing. We need to change together in a more collective sense, and actually get some things done.
I agree.
I guess
the
big difference is
100%.
right now is that us as a YouTube channel, as a smaller YouTube channel, we're not. Yeah, at the end of the day, we'd love to have monetization, advertisements. We'd love to get bigger. Like subscribe, like the video, all that jazz. That's great. We'd love that. But at the end of the day.
It's not why we do it. It's not why we do it.
We're still telling you what we actually believe or feel or have looked up from multiple sources, like what we're thinking. We're telling you the truth. We're not telling you it because it's what feeds views. As to where I can promise you,
we wouldn't have Jason.
I can promise you. Yeah, you're right. I can promise you that if you watch Fox News, everything and that's not just Fox, CNN, any of the news stations. If you're watching the major news stations, everything they tell you, whether it's true or false or slightly exaggerated, whatever, everything they're telling you is for entertainment purposes because they want you to watch, because that's how they make money.
Yep.
100%. So we're not doing that. I'm not trying to do that right now.
No, we're not. I think and we've talked about it, but maybe not enough. But what truly Talk Junkies is about, and it's having this conversation within each other to pick each other's brains on what you feel about a subject, what you feel about a subject, and what I feel about a subject. And it's complete raw, man. It's raw like a fucking raw steak, an 8-ounce, 10-ounce ribeye, man. That's who we are,
8-ounce,
man.
10-ounce ribeye.
That's who the fuck we are, man.
Damn right.
That's who we are. And living this life and just listening to those organizations and taking it verbatim what they say, man. Like, people make political they will change their lives.
They all have, everybody's got an agenda.
They changed their lives based on fucking CNN, man. Like, what the fuck? What time do we live in where you watch a news program for hours or even 1 hour or even 30 minutes and make an opinion or make a decision in your life based upon that news program? What the fuck, man?
It's ridiculous to me. That's why I said multiple sources.
So you're an anti-conformist. So you're like super anti-conformist whenever it comes to.
No, it doesn't have to do anything with. Okay, actually, it does a little. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Bad. But
it should be that way. It should be that way.
No, you should. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with watching CNN. There is something wrong with watching CNN, believing everything they say
without questioning,
never looking at anything else.
Right.
If you watch the news, if you like, you know what? I'm going to turn on Channel 4. I'm going to turn on Fox tonight. I'm going to watch Fox News. I'm going to believe everything they say, and I'm not going to look up any alternatives. That's a problem.
Or if you go and talk to an individual that's way more well-informed on the matter, that has an opposite view of you, and then they kill you in a debate. And I'm not saying you can't still retain the beliefs that you had to begin with.
But you should look into what they're saying.
But you just don't go, oh, man, they had some really good points there, and I need to look at that. If you don't at least do that, like, you can't be so many individuals are hard-headed on the right and the left. It happens both sides. You need to, and I mean, nobody's ever going to get it right. I mean, let's be honest here, gentlemen. Is anybody ever going to get it fucking right?
No.
I fucking doubt it.
You've brought it up multiple times. Socrates.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus. I mean, we're not going to get this right. But we're going to do our best.
The only thing I know is that I know nothing. Like,
I think you need to come into it with that mentality.
Okay, but okay, we can sit there and say that all we want, but you know what? I'm sitting there and I'm tired of Socrates and fucking.
I wasn't trying to get all into that.
I know, but we could do it this way or that way, or we're never going to get it right. You know what? We may never get it right, but as opposed to saying that, let's at least fucking try to get it right, man. Let's fucking try.
Let's try.
What are we doing to try and get it right?
This thing better.
Yeah,
this thing better.
And we're not doing anything geared towards that.
This cycle of government comes in, becomes established, people do all the work. All of a sudden, the government goes too far, fucks the people over. The people come and take it over.
Which the government are the people, by the way.
Yeah, well, in America, supposedly, it's
right.
no longer. It's no
continue.
longer that.
Sorry, continue.
But you're right. When do we end this cycle to where, man, we need something better? But the problem is it's been so installed into us, and we're so used to it that it's just what we accept. And I mean, could you imagine a world where we have the amount of technology that we have now, the amount of like medical science, technological science, the amount of communications that we have now between countries, and we took away these individuals that are thoroughly fucking it up for everybody because of their absolute greed and need for power, and we come up with a better system, which I cannot think of one. I mean, if anybody out there who's listening to this thinks that they have a better idea as far as hierarchies and how the government should be run, you can let me know. I still would like to hear other opinions on how government should be run. And we should be questioning our government and how we need to reform government and everything. Reform should be happening constantly within government. I mean, just constant reform. We've had barely any whenever it comes to things. But I mean, like, we need to strive. We need to keep striving forward for an even better tomorrow. Even though this is the best time to live in, why not have it a little bit better? Why not have people be able to be more educated? So I was about to go on a rant, but that's fine. Cut me off. Thank God.
But what we need to do, and obviously there have been laws that have put in place for these for these major news organizations to spew out absolute propaganda, which is. Fuck it, man. It is what it is.
They're not held accountable anymore, by the way.
They're not. So what the fuck, man? They literally have us in the deepest hole possible that we could actually be in. There's a piece of cheese. It's on top of the clock, man, and we can't get to that fucking piece of cheese. And it's fucking frustrating, man.
The problem, I hate to say this, the problem is not with them, by the way. Hold up. The problem is not with them. The problem is with us. It's the same thing that I brought up, and I don't want to get into this.
No.
But it's the same thing I brought up when you guys brought up copyright infringement, YouTube, free speech, and all this stuff. At the end of the day, we did this to ourselves.
I disagree, though, man.
No, when you listen to CNN and you decide
You
what
have
they
that
say.
choice. You have that choice for sure.
No. When you decide what they say is fact, you've lost. As soon as you just listen to them and only them, and you agree with everything they say, and you're like, they're speaking the truth. This one source that I got information from,
unfortunately,
is speaking the truth.
And I don't want to go down that. I don't want to go down that hole. But unfortunately, in the times that we live in, we have a platform where people are able to put their information out, and people are able to soak that in. And when you have 350 million people, right? And we've talked about this in previous podcasts, that maybe 350 million people, and same with China, 1 billion people, is too many people to govern. But when you have that many people, and you're able to spread that message to every single one of those people, you're going to have maybe 10, 15%, maybe even less, maybe even more, say, oh, you know what? I think they're right, without doing any sort of research to back that up.
Okay, once again, that's the problem.
To me, that is crazy. Why?
That's the problem with the 10 or 15%. Don't be that person. Do not.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. But that's not CNN's fault. CNN is trying to make a fucking dollar.
You're right, but
they're trying to make money.
Our government that we have currently have put us in this position. They've literally built us this way. That's how we are literally born into this world. We are born that way to conform to an idea.
But we are humans. We're individuals.
Very
we can
true.
do whatever we want in life.
It's very true.
So what I'm asking you out there is that, like, when you're done listening to this podcast for whatever reason, don't just listen to what we say. Look up what other people say too. And then after that, look up what other people say, and then do some research for yourself on the matter if you want to. If it's something you're not able to do, then find someone who's capable of doing that research and do it as well. Like, you should always have my end point here is you should always have multiple sources.
Yeah.
And multiple. You should never take anything from one person or one source and just take it as fact or truth.
Because the one thing, and I'm going to back you up on this, and the reasoning behind this, and the wisdom behind this is, from what my understanding is that everything changes constantly. Morality changes, the way people live their life changes, language changes, technology changes, everything changes. You need to understand that it's not just about the individual, it's about everybody else on the planet and their happiness too. Not just about your viewpoints and what makes you happy and what makes you feel comfortable. If you go about doing things that make you feel comfortable, that's fine. But there is also a shit ton of other people out there that are attempting the same journey as you, and you need to have respect for them and understand that everything else is changing around. There's so many variables changing throughout life, and you need to have that general understanding, that fundamental understanding that nothing stays static. It is crazy. It's just, everything's just crazy changing out there. New information comes out. Now this is acceptable. This wasn't acceptable then. All this. You need to be in the almost a humble mindset that you were just one individual, and I know everybody chases their own happiness, is what you should be doing. Everybody should be chasing their own individual happiness, but you need respect for everyone else's journey as well on their pursuit of happiness, basically. And this conflux of just what the earth is and what the universe is, and in all of this.
Perfect.
I know I'm getting off here a little bit.
A perfect example of that in society would be the fact that, like, if you're around my age or Paul's, any of our age, because we're all right around 30, give or take a year or two.
Oh yeah,
I'm still in my 20s, motherfucker.
Oh, okay, 29-year-old. We're all right around 30, give or take a year or two. If you're around our age or younger than us, you've experienced the fact that, like, you're like, man, this 80-year-old person is really racist, and they're really against gay marriage. Stuff changes with time. We have people way younger than us who are more quote-unquote progressive than us in some way, shape, or form. And this is just, I'm getting way off topic here.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
I do too.
I'm getting way off
I'm
topic.
completely okay with
continue,
change.
continue.
I'm completely okay with change. But when you have news organizations shaping the minds of millions, I think that's absolutely uncalled for.
That's not, I get what you're saying. The point I'm making real quick is the fact that we're literally, that's perfect evidence of the fact that you see change in front of you all the time. Take the fact that you, right now as an individual watching this video, can look at people older than you and be like, man, I can't believe some of the stuff they believed in. I can't believe their views and the way they're okay with stuff. Like, they still hate this certain race of people. they still hate this like genetic makeup of people and are not okay with this and so on and so forth. And then you have the opposite, by the way. You have the people younger than, I don't know what age you are watching, but you have people younger than you that are looking at you saying the same thing, or you're looking at people younger than you saying, whoa, 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 whoa. I can't believe they're letting this and this happen. Like, this is getting a little ridiculous. We shouldn't change things like this. Like, this is the only thing that exists. Like, we shouldn't fucking modify some things and change some things. This shouldn't happen. The point is, whether you're wrong or right, it doesn't matter. Whether you're wrong or right, it doesn't matter. Change happens. And if you don't believe that, there's a perfect example in 60 years of span just
but
time.
Who's making the change?
Beings.
Who's making the change? Is it a collectiveness?
I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying the fact that I'm just backing up Jesse's point of the fact that
all right.
Change. I'm just talking about society, but this applies to everything.
Change is inevitable, but how does change?
Exactly. Change is inevitable, and I'm just giving an example. That is proof that change happens. Like, if you need the proof that change happens, look at the people older than you, look at the people younger than you, and just see how society has changed and what people's beliefs are. And think what it'll be 200 years from now, or what it was 200 years ago. Because so to say that, like, oh man, stuff's set in stone.
I think that's
like I'm correct
that's gotta
in
be
my beliefs. I'm correct in my beliefs.
That's got to be a given that change is inevitable. Like, I get it, man.
Yet people still say I'm right. I'm right.
For sure.
I know the correct answer.
All right.
So that general idea. How can you ever sit down and say I'm 100% right on this, given this span of history that we have, this great span of just knowledge, and we can go all the way back to like Mesopotamia and seeing how they live their life, and then all the way up to current day and seeing the change, and then for you to sit there as an individual and be like, I have this 100%.
No.
I cannot almost take you seriously.
I don't have it right.
Right?
You don't have it right. Paul doesn't have it right. Like, none of us do. That's the whole point, is that
you should
stuff constantly progresses and changes.
But
is anything an absolute truth, basically? I think is...
No, I want to go down there. But for legitimately what we just talked about, anyone who's listened to this podcast in this entirety, this is what Talk Junkies is about. This conversation that we just had just right now, that is what we are about. 100%, man. 100%. We are looking for people to join our conversation for the fucking conversation that we just had, because that was 100, man.
And I think this idea will unify more people than anything else. Is what we've just gone over in the past like 15 minutes. Is if you focus on your happiness, but also this other person is trying to do the exact same thing as you, and they're trying to go about the way that they're trying to get to their
happiness. Except that they might be different, and that you can let them be happy too.
There needs to be that respect for them, and the only way that you have that, because you start disregarding other people's beliefs the second you think that, oh, I have this 100% straight. I know this 100%. So them saying something opposite than me, oh, I belittle them. And they're not worth anything to me because they have it wrong. And that is what we need to get away from. Is that even, like, I have fundamental beliefs. Everybody has fundamental core beliefs. But you also need to know that I need to understand my fundamental core beliefs
are different than someone else's.
If something comes up in the next 50 years that disproves me, I cannot hold on to those anymore. I need to accept the fact that I have been holding on to a core belief that I've been wrong on and move on from that. So you cannot be 100% on anything in this life for what you believe in. I'm not saying don't believe, I'm not saying be, just, oh, there's no purpose to the universe and in all this and everything's fucking chaos.
But so question.
But that's developmental. That's how we develop. How we develop.
Hold on. So I got a question. For what you're saying, though, like, for the history that you're talking about, when you go back to Mesopotamia and you go to today, like it's all humans. It's all like it's a
human.
Yeah,
it's a human thing we're dealing with.
Yeah,
and the second, but I'm sorry, you can continue.
No, that's all I had.
To put what Jesse was...
It's a human aspect, and my whole thing is everybody's humans, and I think that so much of us get one-sided and so deep into our beliefs. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with having core fundamental beliefs, because I do, Johnny does, Paul does, the people listening do, everybody does. There's nothing wrong with that. But you also need to have the understanding. You also need the understanding that everything has changed. Every belief that anyone had 2,000 years ago doesn't apply anymore. and neither were ours 2,000 years from now.
I think if we
and we need to have that humbling experience to where we don't have everything right.
How about this?
And it's a matter of respect for other people, I think, is what my main
Dude, that's a
core
given.
of this.
That's a given.
The point is that you should be able to take.
We have a lack of it, though.
You-
we have a
I have-
lack.
oh, yeah.
We
Okay, I
attack,
believe-
we attack other people with,
Yeah.
with immediately. They
yeah.
you don't believe the same thing I do? Oh, I'm all for the red team, and you like the blue team? Oh, fuck you then.
Right.
That's what it.
That's the problem though,
that's
because
what America is.
that's the problem though, because things change. Like, I'm getting way out here with this one. But it's backing up the point that you made about the whole things change. Like, if 60 years from now, your core beliefs, like the beliefs that you believe to your fucking heart, change, you are willing to adapt and accept those changes because that's human life. When you don't accept those changes, it's a problem. Like, if right now, if all of a sudden you're like, man, turtles don't fly, and then fucking 20 years from now, turtles are flying everywhere and all they eat is tires, that's a known fact. Oh man, turtles fly and they eat fucking tires off of spare cars. That's what they do. That's what the I'm getting, like I said, I'm getting way out there. I'm being real random with it. But that's the point, is that fucking 200 years from now, that's what people will know. That turtles are flying animals that eat spare tires off of cars.
I think.
Hold on.
I'm sorry, I got real out there.
This is a great segue into ego. If you want to talk about
for
ego
sure, what
right
human
now.
has ever had it right?
None of them.
None of them.
So
None of us have.
what are we doing?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So like,
So now you're talking about the human ego.
Which is
Right?
what you wanted to get into anyways. You guys remember when we were talking about coronavirus?
yeah.
So to say this, as far as the human ego and the importance of your relevance in the world to yourself, because trust me, your importance to yourself is very misconstrued to the importance that other people have for you. If all of a sudden you have this...
Before you go, I don't think
Okay,
that
okay.
like growing up in the education system that we have, like ego is really not a big thing. Like you're supposed to be a part of the school, the collectiveness.
Ego's a huge thing in our society.
But not in school though, right?
Yes,
Sorry.
it is. I'm sorry, Paul. Were you never told that you're an individual and then you're special?
Not in school, no.
Really?
Really?
Okay.
Like, dude, in school, man, it was just like, you know,
I'm
just
just
me,
saying,
man.
I grew up, the world I grew up in, they always told me like, oh man, you're an individual. You're special. Every person's special in their own way, shape, or form. Your mom told you, oh, you're special. You're going to be different. Like, that's a fucking very common thing in this day and age in our society between fucking 1980 and 2020, whatever. Like,
No, I never had that in school, man. They literally, I just was kind of just like just doing my own thing. Like I was never really told anything. I just did.
but you don't
whatever.
have your own ego. You don't have your own like feeling that you're worth more than not worth
Yeah,
more than other people.
for sure. I
But
have
like
that.
for example,
I have that for
you're
sure.
all about the podcast.
Yeah,
The podcast
I have
is
it.
something that you see
yeah,
as something that you can do that's different from other people.
right.
That's ego. That's
Yeah, no, I get it. It's there. It exists for sure, 100%. You know, and I think that a lot of what society has to hold, and especially for where we are in society and how we've developed as a country here in the Western world, fuels a lot of what our egos are. You know, I mean, we look at the collectiveness of what 350 million people have to offer. I think, like I said, what's broadcasted to us, what we're able to consume within our own eyes, with our phones, our computers, and all that, I think a lot of it has to shape who we are. So a lot of these people who are in control have shaped us for who we are. So I guess what I'm saying throughout this whole podcast, and I think this is what I meant to say, is I think that we could be in a completely different place if it weren't for the direction that we headed and that we are in right now in the current state. Of course, we can always branch off and do multiple different things, but for where we are right now, and when Jesse's about to go deep into ego, I disagree with a lot of what he says, because I think currently in the state of who me, Jesse, and Johnny is based upon what we have been fed our whole lives in the society that we live in.
okay.
I'm supposed to go deep into ego right now. Johnny, can you do me a favor and pull up the Webster-Merriam definition of ego?
Are you trying to get like there's multiple definitions. Are you trying to get the difference between ego, id, and all that shit they teach you in psychology class? Ego, id, and ID. What are the three different ones? I don't know.
Do you think that society today has shaped your ego, or is your ego your ego? Is that something that is untouched?
Oh, it's id, ego, and superego are the three.
Is that something that's untouched? It's truly yours. No one has ever had really any other shape for it except yourself.
You're going into something that I am outside of my scope, that I cannot answer because it's outside of my scope of knowledge, which I don't feel. I could bullshit. I could bullshit right now, but I don't want to bullshit. I don't want to give you just this half-assed thing that I could give you right now. But as far as whenever you think ego, you think you're like your person in like who you are, right?
You're talking about the narcissistic
Yes.
side of things, like how you see yourself.
Yeah, how you see yourself and why that's important, which it is very important. But to have a super ego complex to where, man, I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore.
Real quick, I'm gonna go through real quick
because this is a really difficult and like I said, this is very much outside of my scope as far as what I'm knowledgeable on. I remember like
you're knowledgeable as shit on it, bro. We all have one.
No, I am, because the best example that I can have is whenever I went through psychedelic experiences with psilocybin mushrooms, to where I had a loss of ego and a loss of myself and feeling a complete loss of who I am, which is extremely scary. But whenever you come back...
Why is it... Hold on. Why is it scary? Because you've never felt that before.
Yes.
Because you've never felt that before.
Because it is so much... You don't realize it because it happens constantly. Your ego's constantly in play. And this fundamental feeling of who you are, and to go through an experience where you lose who you are, and you feel like you're literally...
For a short period of time.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a short period
in
of
the
time.
grand scheme of things, though.
In the grand... You're right. In the actual... Like,
so God forbid you lose your ego for 8 hours when you've had your whole
it's actually
ego
probably
for 30
for a couple
years.
Minutes. If you lose the feeling of loss of ego through psychedelic,
that would change your perception of time too, though.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it's so scary to no longer understand and to feel who you are, and you feel it's almost unexplainable with the loss of ego. The loss of ego through, and you can only get this through, for me, it was like, I've done acid once and I've done psilocybin mushrooms, like probably 15 times. I've only had a loss of ego a handful of times, and it's horribly scary to not understand. You don't feel like you anymore. You feel like something separated from that, and nothing is understandable, and you're just... Like, you just feel really alone, like this extremely alone, like you've separated from all the fucking things you felt fundamental. And to come back to it, you realize how fickle everything that you see is. Whenever the whole point is coming back. The scary experience is awful and it's scary, but to come back and then to like snap back into reality. Because I've been off in that void, and I felt a loss of time, and I felt a loss of ego, and all this. Whenever you come back from a psychedelic experience like that, you have a lot more, just a humbling, like you're like bowing to the universe almost, to where like, oh, man, I'm a high school quarterback.
You realize your ego's
man,
not as important.
I'm a high school quarterback, and I'm a badass, and I'm fucking, look at my genetics, like look at my, you know,
it only
like
lasts for
look
a
at
little
me,
bit, though,
like look at me. But whenever, dude, the universe can make you feel like a grain of sand, like a molecule in a grain of sand. Whenever you felt like a giant before in life, like, man, look at me.
So you're telling me if
like, look at me,
so
look at me.
Hold on.
So before psychedelic mushrooms, right?
Hold on. Patty Mahomes takes the most rad fucking mushrooms right now. It'll put him in his place.
Should probably put everybody in their place.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
if you
from
want,
what you're describing,
if you ever have that feeling like, oh, look at me, look at this beautiful fucking thing that I am. Look at all the things I'm capable of. Man, I'm all this. The universe has put some fucking things on this planet that if you take them, you will have a humbling experience to realize how in absolute, you're not even a ripple you're like a ripple in an ocean that maybe lasts like a second in comparison to everything. And then it's just this humbling experience to come back and just be like, holy shit. like that's all I really am, and that's just this.
But how true is that statement? You know,
What?
No, it's very true. It's very true. It's
How do you know that?
it's actually very realistic.
How do you know that, though?
In my opinion, with
how far back does time go?
especially with males, and I'm not going to dog on my own sex right now, but males tend to be a little bit more like beefy on the front end, confident. Like you need to show your feathers, right? Like
egotistical.
You peacock,
Sure.
show your feathers. Look at me, like look at me,
Right.
dude. You see it in young dudes all the time. Young dudes piss me off all the time because they're show offy. They're this. Look at my shit. Look at what I could do, and they do stupid shit. And I look back at them. And I'm like, dude, don't get me wrong. I used to do it, but I'm like, man, you guys look like assholes right now. Like, you need to chill the fuck out. Like, nobody gives a shit, but they're peacocking. They're like peacocking their fucking shit. They're like, look at me. There's something about being separated from that and feeling the experience that your actual relevance to this whole thing is pretty minimal. In all honesty, you're minimal. I mean, infinitesimally like small within this whole thing that we're dealing with, which is the universe. If you expand it even farther back, like I'm only talking about Earth right now. We don't know other intelligent life on other planets, which probably fucking happen, and that's happening. Like how important do you really think you are? Where is your high and mightiness right now?
I'm not going down this road. This will branch off into some.
I wanted
deep
to
shit,
real
man.
quick.
No, but
wanted-
I will.
on a
Like,
more
I'm
on
just-
not even.
My best,
a more scientific level. I wanted to get into what the id, the three things in psychology.
And I'm sorry
whatever.
if I fucked that up. I know
Are-
you want to talk about ego.
Id or ID, whatever you want to call it, but they call it id. Id, ego, and superego. And the only thing under your control is ego. Id is what is ingrained in you. Like things like your id is you're a human being. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to seek shelter. You have to reproduce. Everything that's subconscious, not under your control.
Mhm.
Things that have to happen in life. Like you have to eat to continue being a human being. That's part of your id. Your superego is the things that are not under your control, but were influenced upon you, such as your beliefs. So, super religious, or super scientific, or super... The things that you believe that there doesn't have to be fact behind. Just things that you know. You know it with 100% certainty. You know. That's oxygen. We breathe in oxygen. That's part of your superego. The fact that you know that to be true. That's part of your superego. Your ego is everything that you define about yourself. That you decide, this is who I'm going to be. These are the decisions and choices that I will make in life. My name is Johnny Clark.
Fundamental.
And the things that I will do are the things that I have control of, that I will change and adapt and do whatever I want to do in life. And I want to be the car guy. I want to be all about cars. I want to be the mushroom guy. I want to know everything there is in the world to know about mushrooms, whatever that is. That's your ego.
They all intertwine too. So
That's
they all intertwine, right?
No, Jesse was hitting it hard, bro. That was hard, man.
Am I correct? Or they're not all intertwined
That
too?
was money.
Because the id and the superego all intertwine also with your ego.
I mean, they're all a part of you.
Yes. So they're all a part of you. You're just talking about the one
But
that
you have
you
no
feel
effect.
in control
Look,
of.
You have
The one
no
that-
effect on your id or your superego.
Okay. So your ego is the one that you have control over.
Yes.
But also the other two have a direct effect upon your ego within itself.
Yeah, they influence who you are
because
as a human being.
that's just how
Because you
how
have
the
to
dice
eat.
roll.
You
That's
have to
just
eat.
how the dice roll.
Let's leave it at that, man. We're right over an hour. We've
Oh
literally
man,
hit
what
over
a,
an
what a
hour.
shitty spot to end it on, man.
No, I want to leave him for next time, man. I want to leave
Okay.
him for next time.
That's fair.
I feel like I feel shitty. Like I feel like we had a good podcast, but I feel like we like transitioned a lot, almost like too rapidly.
No, I don't want to go down that
All right,
road.
yeah, let's end this one. If we bang out another podcast, we can. Typically, the second ones are real shitty.
Yeah. No,
but we'll work it out.
Yeah. Thank you guys, man. It's been a couple weeks since we've actually uploaded a video, but we're gonna get back into the groove, man. We got this one uploading tonight. Johnny's actually going to be hitting home on the editing.
Yeah, so not uploading tonight, uploading like Tuesday morning.
Right. And then we got Pat potentially joining us next week from Truth, Money, Freedom
That'll
Podcast.
be dope. That'll be dope. I love Pat. Pat's great.
Same. So we're excited to have Pat on. I appreciate everything that he's done for Talk Junkies, man. I truly greatly appreciate it. I'm in the works of still emailing people and trying to get different guests on, man. So all our Talk Junkies out there, please bear with us. We're trying to get the best information possible that we can to provide for you out there on Talk Junkies. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the bell notification to all our junkies out there.
Stay fly and ring the bell.